I'm like, listen, I'm going to buy this rooftop tent. We're going to get it home and then I'm going to throw it on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace or whatever, sell it for like double what I'm going to pay for it.
Yeah.
And she's like,
So
all right, fine.
what was your initial investment in the rest of your life right there?
$500.
Mr. Brock Keene, how's it going, man?
Good, Chris. How are you doing?
I'm good. And
Good.
I always think about the guest and what's going on in their lives and, what's going on in my life before I have someone on. And I've been thinking, and I'm hoping you can give me some advice. I have a question, and I'm hoping it turns into advice. You've really especially since the last time we talked, which was, years ago on the podcast. I mean, we talk all
Yeah.
the time, but on
Yeah.
the podcast, it's been a while, and a lot has changed for you. And, you were kind of in the fledgling first steps of building what you have today.
Yeah.
But it's not like exactly a company with a 10-year roadmap, right? It's not like you have like this
No
super
clue at
like,
all. Yeah. Yeah.
it's become more of like a lifestyle and a movement, which you're making your living on. And, I can relate with that, with
Yeah.
Overcrest and stuff like that. And I'm just wondering if you feel like, because this is what I struggle with, and I've been doing this for 20 years, just like kind of navigating this. You get to the end of one road and you kind of look one way down the intersection, then you look the other way and you go, okay, where am I going now? And so then you take left and hope that works out. And, do you feel like this stuff that we're doing has a shelf life, and does it scare you? And what do you do with that fear, if so? Because it scares me, man.
I think maybe we're a little bit different. I actually don't know a lot of your like background before like the car scene that we've kind of been involved with. But for me, my entire life, I've been somewhat of an entrepreneur. And that has this inherent risk every single day, every single month. You never know when a paycheck's actually really going to be there. It could go away
Yeah.
anytime. But I mean, let's be real. The economy we live in, nobody really knows when that's going to happen for them, anyways. It's just a little bit, I think, more expectant of an entrepreneur. So for me, it's always like wide open throttle, and yes, going down those roads and maybe seeing a fork in the road or that an intersection or whatever it is, and then just sending it essentially. I mean, there's not a lot of like, there is planning. Like I have a long term vision of what I want my life to look like, and I just trust that the decisions, the risks, the failures that happen throughout my life, that I will learn from those things and move forward. So yes, we have a shelf life for everything that we do. I mean, we literally have a shelf life, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no
And
kidding.
I don't have kids. I know your family. So for me, it's kind of like, what am I going to leave behind? And I want that to be a little bit of like an impact in just other people's lives, and hopefully motivating them or inspiring them, or showing that you can literally live your dreams if you're willing to step outside of most boxes and get a little uncomfortable, take a risk. So
Yeah,
that's it. I mean,
I
that's what I want to leave behind.
yeah, I think legacy is always important, especially as I think we're fairly similar in age, and you start thinking about this stuff when you're 25. You think of break, you're
Yeah,
just like,
no
let's
chance.
go, this is great, yeah.
Yeah.
And you do start thinking about it. Um, I think it is kind of an entrepreneur mindset where it's almost hard to disconnect that plug-in. Like I have it now too. I didn't always have it, but I have it now, and like it's almost an idea will come across the table or a concept for something. And I'm sure you deal with this all the time because you've got like a place you want to go or a film you want to make or content you want to make like that. And the immediate thought is, that's a great idea. How does that fit into what I'm doing? Do you ever feel like things get spoiled by all this? I mean, sometimes it's just like,
100%.
like
100%.
how do you deal with that, man? That's
Yeah,
tough.
it's interesting. I didn't start what I'm doing as a business. Like it didn't start this way for me. It was a complete accident.
Yep.
And the back to that entrepreneurial thing, I saw it at that moment. I'm like, oh man, I could turn this into something that maybe I could make a living off of, doing the things that I love. And that's like everybody's dream. And then I realized probably 2 years ago, I think it was 2 years ago, we were doing a project for Porsche AG, and I was stressed. I mean, really, really stressed. And I realized that, wow, this isn't always fun anymore. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I think that's good. And it was just, that was the moment for me. Like, we've got to solve this problem, and it's a pretty big problem. And now these kinds of things are probably going to happen a little bit more often because of the path that it's taken me.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not always fun anymore. Like, there's definitely the hard stuff, the work. I literally experienced this yesterday with a project, and I'm like, got to play catch up after we get off the podcast. So it's just one of those things.
It's like that, when you're young, you're in high school, or you're 20 years old, and someone goes, "Man," someone that you probably didn't get told this, but you read it somewhere. If you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. Right?
Totally. Yeah. It is for a moment. Like, I would say that I wouldn't trade what I do now for
True.
any of the things that I've done in the past.
Yeah.
Like, no chance. Like, wouldn't even think. There's not even a moment of me that would want to
Yeah,
trade
I don't want
that.
people to think I'm bitching and complaining about what we get to do, which is truly incredible. But it is hard to be passionate and love something and then have to grind on it.
Yeah, for
it
sure.
is hard because it affects the thing. If you're working on the thing that makes you happy, the work does interfere with it a little bit. There's a little bit of a frequency that comes in, and it changes because you have to make decisions differently.
Yeah.
Like, I remember when I wrote the Take the Car road piece, which is my canon piece, right? I don't think I'll ever do something like that ever again. 50 pages and 15,000 words and 000 and all these photos and stuff, and the way that worked out, where the transmission blew up and stuff like that. None of that was work.
Totally.
None of that was work. That was all just like, go with it. And I think now, if I was asked to do something again, your brain just goes, okay, what is the content that can be created? How can I leverage it? What connections do I have to make this work for me? How can I make this possible so that I'm being fair to my family, that I'm not just like out gallivanting around doing these things? So it is difficult. It does screw with things a little bit. But again, I'm not complaining. I feel very blessed and lucky to be able to do what I do. Do you want to talk a little bit about what you did before and how it's influenced what you do now?
Yeah, I don't get to do this I don't get to do that part of things very often.
Well, let's hear it, man. Like, let's go like Brock does not own a 996 or a tent.
Yeah. Well, I've owned a tent for a long time, and I haven't not maybe not a not a rooftop tent, but yeah. So I'll try to make this part of the story fairly short, but basically,
we got all kinds of time, man. It was
wonderful.
Unlimited time.
But don't tempt me.
I'm tempting you.
So when I was in high school, I didn't come from a really wealthy family. I came from a family of entrepreneurs, super hard workers, but still kind of this idea of like trading time for money. And I, got roped into one of these network marketing things at 17 years old. And it was basically the only thing that I knew that could potentially get me out of it, at least what I believed would potentially change my situation. And so I jumped in head first, and I was the right place at the right time. And this is going to date me, but I was literally reselling long distance phone service for those kids out there. You like dial a one and then all these things.
Yeah, remember the buttons? There were springs behind all the buttons on the phones back in the day, guys.
Oh yeah, it's just totally. So I was reselling long distance phone service, and fortunately for me, that turned into an extremely lucrative thing.
What were you doing at the time before that? Like, what was your life like? I mean, what was?
Oh man, I grew up in the grass seed capital of the world, which is this little area called Tangent, Oregon.
Dude, that's like a hell of a name for a town, Tangent.
It's literally, there's nothing original about it. It's the tangent of two major highways.
Okay.
So yeah, that's and all I did.
Destining.
Yeah. So grew up bagging seed, bucking hay. That's what I was doing. I was basically a farm boy without a farm. So I was just a general laborer through high school. I was working in produce stands and things like that with some crazy passion for cars. Primarily Porsches. I could tell you the bug that bit me was a ride in the 928 at probably 7 or 8 years old. I was in the back seat. So like, if you've been in those cars, you feel like you're in a spaceship at that point.
Yeah.
Um,
And it looks like a spaceship too.
yeah, yeah. So that's when the car bug bit me. And then that I just kind of lingered for a long time. And fortunately, I just always seemed to have friends with parents that had Porsches of some level. And I was just super fascinated by it. And by the time I'd saved up enough money, there was a 55 356 white over red sitting on the corner at an intersection we drove by every day to school. And I was determined to have that car, and I think it was $6,500,
Whew,
um,
what a
which
deal.
is completely insane to think about.
That is one
Um,
expensive bathtub.
yeah, yeah. And so $6,500. I didn't have enough money. I had like 4,500, and I was trying to convince my folks to loan me the difference, and they're just like, it's not going to happen. You don't want that. It's an old Volkswagen. It's going to be nothing but problems. My parents will never live that down, ever, ever live that down. Um, but on another route on my way back home from work, I would drive by this old house, kind of in a neighborhood, and there was always this white 1964 Corvair convertible sitting out front. And I didn't really know anything about it, but it was fairly inexpensive. It was like $3,500. And I pulled into the
Hey, you
driveway,
got
and
another grand to spend on it when it breaks down.
yeah,
You're all set.
which turned out I needed that other grand. Um, so yeah, the guy's name was Lonnie Anderson, and Lonnie was super old. He was an old automotive painter, so the paint on the car was incredible. He'd definitely done a bunch of body work on it. I bought that car, and so that was my first flat six air cooled car.
Okay. So
So
Brock's in a Corvair
yeah,
getting into selling long distance calling cars. So I'm imagining. No, is the timeline about right? Is that
yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
So like, I'm imagining you like in a suit that you got from Savers,
Oh man,
and
I'm
with
gonna
like a
have to send you.
little attaché
No,
or
no,
something.
no, Chris. It was way worse than that. It was way worse than that. It was usually me in some sort of a pastelly Lacoste polo with the
Ooh.
collar popped, and going around like thinking I was some sort of big deal. Um, and it was just as far from it as possible. But I was literally trying to become everything that I thought I didn't want to be. And that was kind of the interesting, yeah, think about it. Trying to become everything I didn't want to be. It really didn't want to do any of those things.
Is it coming from a place of being unhappy with your station in life or yourself, or where that?
FCP Euro is an online retailer of OE, OEM, genuine aftermarket, and performance parts for European cars. From BMW to Porsche, Volvo, Audi, Volkswagen, and more. Their catalog is a one-stop shop with over 275,000 unique products, including expert-assembled kits to make shopping simpler. Whether you're doing a suspension overhaul or an oil change, these kits really take all the guesswork out of the process. No more wondering if those bolts are one-time use-only stretch bolts that I probably would have ended up reusing anyways, or maybe you don't know if you need the gasket to go with that. Just select the kit online and you're good to go. It takes all the guesswork out of it. Plus, every product they sell is backed by a lifetime replacement guarantee, even wear items like wiper blades, brake pads, and oil filters. And with their opening of their distribution center in Mesa, Arizona, FCP Euro is now shipping parts from both coasts, serving most of the country in 3 days or less with the free shipping option. We at Overcrest have been working with FCP Euro for years and can vouch for them. They are real people who are passionate about what they do and the cars we love, while making sure they put you, the customer, first. Check them out today at fcpeuro.com and take advantage of free shipping on any order over $49.
No, I think what happened was my parents sacrificed a lot to put me into private school, and going to a private school as not a rich kid was a really different experience. So I was really surrounded by a lot of, you know, brand names. It was Jordan's this, it was Nike's this, it was, Polos, Lacoste, it was all this kind of stuff. And I felt like those were the things that I really needed to be happy. And so that's what I was running towards. I'm like, how do I get to this point? And I'm not going to say that was a bad situation, because it completely, it did shift the direction of my life. So yeah, that's where that came from. This is like therapy session with Chris. I love it.
No,
And then, yeah, so I started having quite a bit of success with this selling long distance thing. And I ended up with, I don't
How
know,
does this
probably,
work? What it, like?
yeah.
I need to know
Yeah,
this.
I
Like,
think I think most people are familiar with network marketing when you hear things like Amway or Avon or Mary Kay. Like those are
there's a
all,
really good. We'll have to maybe we can. We probably can't insert it because it's too long. There's a really long Amway commercial by Paul Harvey. Have you heard it?
yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Dude, it fucking rules. Like
Yeah, man.
Paul Harvey's voice with Amway
Yeah.
is like super special.
I
Dude.
mean, Paul Harvey's voice with anything. He makes it incredible. But what was really cool about this in this industry was it was all about like self-improvement. It was basically like a self-improvement program with a paycheck. And that was pretty awesome. So it opened up my eyes to all of these different things, like learning how to network, learning how to speak in front of people, learning how to sell. Like that was a big one, right? And it's not just selling things; it's it's selling yourself and your dream, and listening to what other people have to say, and help selling them their dream, and like all of these kinds of things.
Sell me this pen.
Exactly. That's exactly what it was. So built a team that I was like, when I say a team of people, I signed up people underneath me, like little mini franchises, right? And it covered 5 countries, and I think probably tapped about 50,000 people at one point. So
And for
do the
everybody that
math.
doesn't know, long distance is like you had your phone number. Like my phone number when I was growing up was 968-2634. We all had to memorize everybody's phone number, like all your buddies, or you had it written on a piece of paper next to the phone. And then you had an area code, which is the everybody has an area code on their cell phone now, which is for me it's 612. But if you had when you were younger, if you had to dial the area code, you were going to pay long distance money to make that call. So you're always like you're on your parents' line, you're holding the phone, and it's like I'm in Waukesha, dialing Milwaukee, and it's 414. It's a different area code for mine. And you're like, because you're going to pay for it, and it's going to show up on your parents' bill. Yep. It's going to show up, and they're going to be, who's this? Why did you spend $6.75 calling this person? And you have to be like, oh, it's just some girls. Don't ask if you're going to call long distance.
Yeah, totally. It was crazy. And what happened was when I started, you could, like, it was almost regional. So you could, in the Pacific Northwest was like a certain pricing. And then as soon as you crossed over like to Colorado, it became a different pricing, and made it to the Midwest, it was different pricing, and East Coast was different pricing, and then international was different pricing. So what had happened was basically I was making a fraction of a dollar, a few cents off of every single minute somebody was calling throughout my entire organization. And eventually that trickled down to 0, which is fine. And it was great. The problem is capitalism. So because there became more and more competition, and that would drive the price down. And even though
someone's making too much money, your margin is my opportunity.
Totally. So what had happened is this network, this massive network that I had growing of little distributors out there selling stuff was always like getting smaller or getting larger and larger, but the percentages were getting smaller and smaller. And eventually on October 31st, 2004, that company filed. Dude, it changed my life.
On Halloween, you've got it down to a date.
It was probably, at that point, it was the worst day of my life. And because I had a gigantic check bounce. And I was living insane. I was living paycheck to paycheck on this massive amount of money. And then all of a sudden it just stopped. And I hadn't been saving anything because I didn't understand money. And so everything changed at that point. I started trying to hustle again. I was kind of back to square one, and no more Porsches in my life, no more BMWs, no more fancy fun things. So I started over at like 24 years old, which is not that old, right? But it was a big deal at the time. And that moment also changed a lot about me, because I started to kind of realize that all of those things that I was buying and the things that I was doing wasn't actually what was making me happy. It was kind of going out, and it was the camping, it was the backpacking, it was all of those kinds of things that really kind of like filled me up and made me feel good. And that was did
you go on any trips right afterward? I mean,
right afterward, yeah, I went down to San Francisco, California, and met with Anthony Robbins.
Okay. Who's Anthony Robbins? I don't know who that is. Who's that?
You definitely know Anthony Robbins. Like
Do I?
yeah. If you Banana Hands, Shallow Hal, he's a motivational speaker.
Okay.
Tony Robbins, I guess maybe be
Oh, Tony Robbins. Got
yeah.
it,
There you go.
Okay, got it. Yep.
So that was my thing. Went down, talked to him. Well, me and a large group of people, and I was like, oh, like there's more to life. And but ironically, he was pitching me into another network marketing company, which I did, and I jumped in and I did very well. And I'll fast forward a little bit further. That one filed bankruptcy, also, as so many of these companies do, because depreciating profit margins are never good. And then I had kind of built myself up to almost on the corporate side of the industry. So I was traveling around mainly North America, doing training seminars. So this is the suit. This is Brock in a suit that you were imagining.
Okay. But not a Corvair.
Not a Corvair anymore. Yeah, not a Corvair anymore, thank God. Actually, I still have that car, so it's amazing. But yeah, I was speaking on stage in front of thousands of people and telling people how to like better their lives, do this kind of stuff. And
did you believe what you were preaching?
Yeah, because I lived it. I experienced it, but I also understood that, and this is going to go right back to it, that I am not a normal person. Like I'm not the average guy. So, and most things in life, business in life, wild success in life happens to a very small percentage of the majority. And so, 1 to 3% reach the level that I had reached. But at the same time, I also believe that because of my background, anybody could get to that point. And like, I wasn't anything special. I just had a little bit of motivation, some serious motivation. So when I would get up on stage, yeah,
right?
Yeah, for sure. So I believed everything that I was saying, and I still think that 99% of that stuff is applicable to just day-to-day life. And so coming out of that industry, that's really what kind of shaped me and molded me into an entrepreneur, and not being afraid of like failure, and not being afraid of the word no, and not being afraid of an 18-hour workday if I have to do it. That shifted it. I got involved with another company. They asked me to build their training structure for their sales teams. And that company ended up going public, and then allowed me to have IPO. And then that IPO did very well, especially when we kind of fast forward into the pandemic. And that gave me the freedom to basically take a break. And so what happened was in 2017, the company went public in 2015. 2017, I decided I was going to take like a full year off and not do anything, because I'd worked since I was 18 years old, and decided to go start camping and driving and road tripping and doing all that kind of stuff, just kind of reset myself. And that, I would say, brings us to more or less this stage of my life.
So when you took that break, how long did the take a break period last before that was just out the window and you were already like, how can I do things?
So I'd say the take a break period started in 2016. And then I bought the 996 in 2017. And I basically I just drove it. Like I wasn't like creating content. I was just a personal Instagram page. If anybody was seeing anything, I was just out driving and enjoying life. And then I think probably mid 2019, I bought the rooftop tent. No, it was 2018. I bought the rooftop tent. And that was a bit of an accident. Not buying it was an accident, but the way it ended up on the 911 is an accident. People probably heard this story if they know anything about what I'm doing. But all right, so I was at an REI garage sale, which is basically all the things that gets returned to REI. They sell at this crazy discount for people, usually in their parking lot, which is a ton of fun. You wake up early, grab a box of donuts, get in line with a bunch of people, and then as soon as the gates open, you all rush to whatever you think you need to be buying. And I was a gear junkie, like hardcore gear junkie. So anything I could get my hands on that was not broken, I just wanted to own it.
How many flashlights do you own?
Dude. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, gear junkie. Yeah.
Yeah, hardcore. I'm like, ooh, this headlamp looks great. I'll get another one of these. Or, oh, maybe
I should put all my headlamps on and all my flashlights that like clip to mole gear and like put everything on and take a picture and be like, guys.
Chris, you'd be a beacon, you'd be a lighthouse. You'd be a beacon, just like walking around. Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be like one of those trucks that drives behind me at night and blinds me.
Yeah. So we're at this garage sale, and I'm scoping out. There's like 2 rooftop tents sitting over in like a far corner, and this was kind of when the rooftop tent craze was like really, really picking up. And I decided that I would just buy one of these rooftop tents and sell it to one of these suckers that was buying all these rooftop tents. That, like, literally those were the words to Sarah as we're saying, like, I'm like, listen, I'm going to buy this rooftop tent. We're going to get it home, and then I'm going to throw it on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace or whatever, and sell it for like double what I'm going to pay for it.
Yeah.
And she's like, all right, fine.
What was your initial investment in the rest of your life right there?
Petrolbox is a monthly service made specifically for the automotive enthusiast. Each month, they carefully select items including tools, detailing supplies, apparel, garage gear, stickers, and publications to be sent right to your doorstep. It's a curated selection of the latest and greatest gear in the industry, and there's actually 2 different levels of subscription to choose from. The Petrolbox Basic costs less than $20 a month, while the Petrolbox Premium gets you even more gear for $39.95 a month. Check them out at mypetrolbox.com, and be sure to use the code OVERCREST at checkout to get $6 off your first month.
$500.
$500 investment right there. That's where it begins.
$500. So I bought that rooftop tent, not intending to put it on the 911. We have an old Range Rover Classic, and we had just come back from our elopement. My wife and I eloped and did this big 3,000-mile road trip in the Range Rover and slept in the back of it. And it's a short wheelbase. So if you know anything about that, and if you know me, I'm not exactly short. So it'd been way better for like Jake.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Anytime. Yeah. Sleeping in the back of the truck is always hard because you have the floor, and then where the seat falls down, there's always that seam, and then the seat's always up, just like.
Totally. So I went a little above board because I knew I was, I'm going to get married, right? So I took out all the seats in the back. I built a bed platform, got a mattress, got the whole thing, and it ended up basically being Lucy, our golden doodle's bed for most of the trip, which worked out nicely.
Nice.
So did that, decided I'd throw it on top of the Range Rover because that's the most capable vehicle of getting a rooftop tent home. It didn't fit on the Range Rover. It wouldn't fit down on the safari bars, and they wouldn't return it because it was a used thing.
You're stuck with it.
So I'm like, shit. Like, how do I get this thing
literally in the
home?
parking lot of REI right now going, oh my God, this thing doesn't fit on my truck.
Yeah. And I had one of the guys help me, and we go to put it up there, and it the clamps just wouldn't latch down to the rails because of some things that were in the way. And I'd already put a roof rack on the 911 because I road bike and do a bunch of other things and wanted to throw something. I'm like, I'm only like 10 miles away from home. I guess I can take the roof, like the bike rack off of the 911, and maybe we put it on the 911 and get it home and then just pray to God nothing happens. And sure enough, so I go home, I tell the guys at REI, I'm going to come back with a different car. I didn't tell them what. And they weren't very happy when they saw me pull up in a 911. They want to put a roof tent on. The guys are like, we're not putting that on your car. So
really? They wouldn't do it.
They wouldn't do it. So fortunately, my wife being in the beer industry, I had a 6-pack of beer in the car with me, bribed one dude off site. Like, we went to a different parking lot.
Capitalism.
Yeah, right. The barter system actually might be way better.
Yeah.
But so convinced one dude to help me put it on the car. I had no idea how to put a rooftop tent on a car. You think it would just throw it on the rails and you're good to go. What barely fit on the rails the way it was set up, and the entire drive home, every time I would stop at a stop sign or a stoplight, the tent would slide on its rails and just go bang. And then as soon as I would drive away, it would slide back on the rails again, bang. Because you can, I didn't know this, but you can adjust the tent to wherever you want on top of the rails to balance out weight. I'm no engineer. I was selling long distance, man. So this is going on. I don't even make it all the way home, and I stop by a local Rack Attack, which is kind of I think they've got them all over the country. Yeah, and I walk in, I go, hey, listen, I'm a little stressed out. I just bought this rooftop tent. It's on my car, and it's moving back and forth. And the guy's, all right, let's go see what you got. And he walks out, he's like, dude, you can't have that on your car. Because that's a huge liability. Like it's gonna crush the roof, or there's gonna be some issues. I'm like, listen, I just need to get it home. I'm like 5 miles away from home. And he gives me an Allen wrench, and he's like, keep the Allen wrench. I can't be part of this, and goes back inside.
Don't ever come back again.
Yeah. So I tightened it up, and it didn't slide anymore. I got all the way home, and I was pretty proud of myself. Like, one, I had noticed there were a lot of like weird looks that I was getting, like driving through downtown Portland, and like this kind of like, what's this guy doing with a 911 and a rooftop tent? This doesn't make any sense. And I started having this inkling that like there's something kind of cool about this, maybe. So I get home, I decide before I take it off of the car, I'm going to open it up on top of the car just to see what it looks like.
Yeah.
And I open it up, and there's actually, I think you guys might have a photo of it. I know I sent you one, Chris, but I open the tent up, and it opens over the back of the car. And at this point, like, we've been camping and backpacking and doing this kind of stuff with our dog Lucy a lot, and she loves tents. And the moment that she saw that tent open, she was like right at the ladder. And I'm like, all right, I mean, you're like 45 pounds. She's maybe a year old. I tossed her up in the tent, and I'm like, okay, this is pretty cool. Took a couple photos, just for memories. And then my wife came out, and she got in the tent. And I took a picture of them. I'm like, this is like the greatest thing ever. I wonder if it's going to be possible for us to camp on this. And the next weekend, we went to an outdoor concert in Central Oregon and camped on top of the 911 for the first time.
Nice.
And I took one photo. Actually, maybe I took two photos. And one of those photos I posted to my personal Instagram with a hashtag that Yakima Racks was like running a contest with. And basically the way it worked was you'd use this hashtag, it would populate your photo automatically in this massive like gallery, and then people could vote on their favorite photo. And what happened is that even though the contest was closing in like 3 weeks, that photo ended up getting like triple the amount of likes and views. Yep, there's Lucy and the tent. That photo ended up getting, it's not that photo, but it ended up getting triple the amount of votes that any other person who'd been running in the contest for like 3 months had gotten. So I won, which was pretty cool. But then Yakima.
What did you
so
win?
That's the crazy part. So this is the best contest.
You won
this
a
company's
rooftop tent.
Yeah, more or less. It was like you can run a rooftop tent. But what it was is I won $5,000 in Yakima equipment, which was essentially everything that Yakima made. $500 in gas cards, so even better for road tripping.
Yeah.
And then 2 pairs of Smith sunglasses, and I think a blanket from this company called Rumple that makes like a puffy type blanket. So that's what I won. And then Yakima called me up to tell me that I'd won, but they're like, hey, listen, the problem with you winning is, one, do you actually use this, or is it just like a gimmick? And two, we don't think that it's safe on your car. So it's hard for us to like publish it and tell everybody that they can do this. Well, lucky for me or them, Yakima is based like 15 miles from my house. So I was able to drive to their world headquarters. They were able to test it, run it through all their dynamic stress tests and everything else. And then, per usual, found out that the Germans over-engineered something, and the roof on the 911 could hold at minimum 600 pounds.
So I'd be interested in a Mythbusters on this, Brock. We
Mhm.
should find some old shitty 996 that's just done. Tiptronic, IMS has failed, just some piece of shit car. Buy it for like $6,000 or whatever it would cost for, and load it up.
Yeah,
See
and
what
see what it
takes,
actually would handle.
See what it actually takes.
Yeah. Well, Kelly Moss a few years ago took I think it was a 997 Cup car, and had reinforced everything, and then they rested their G-body 911 on the roof,
On top, yeah.
which is pretty insane. But it was all reinforced. Like, that's not going to happen usually.
I'd be curious. I think it'd be fun to see when
Yeah.
it finally starts to like.
I'm down.
First like oil canning moment where it goes,
Yeah.
that's just
Yeah.
that first like it would be
Yeah.
crazy. So over the last then I guess it would be like six years or so, 6 or 7 years, you've amassed an incredible portfolio of content that has inspired so many people. It's been really cool to see. What do you do with all this content, man? So I need more advice.
Yeah.
Okay. So Overcrest, we've also aggregated just like zillions of hours of content, terabytes and terabytes and terabytes of content. What do you do with it all, man? What do you do with this content, or what do you plan on doing with all this content? Because you must have so much stuff that nobody's ever seen. So
yeah, it's pretty insane, actually. I mean, we're terabytes and terabytes and terabytes of data. A lot of it is just not good because, like you shoot 100 photos and you get 5 or 10 that are great.
Yep.
But we kind of transitioned over to video content, so there's just never ending amounts of content for that. I was doing that, all day yesterday, and most of my days are made up of shooting more content. I probably should just stop shooting content and start going back through and like reliving everything.
It's almost like you could have an infinite amount of content, though, because I found that, partners that we work with stuff too, a lot of people just want content.
Yeah.
Because the machine, like you could post every single day. You could post twice a day.
Yeah.
With original content.
It's
infinite. It's almost
it's pretty crazy. And this kind of goes back to our early conversation. But I don't post that much anymore. I mean, I post a few times a month. And granted, when I do post, like hopefully people really enjoy it and it's really engaging. But what we've kind of started doing is just creating content. And so, we create content for different brands, and it's not really geared towards me necessarily or what I'm doing, but what do I do with all my content? It's in stacks and stacks of hard drives in my safe. I mean, that's where it's at. And maybe one day, did you ever see, I think it's called Val Kilmer did his son, that was so good. Like I looked through that and I don't think I'm cool in any way like that, but I think that the story and the people's stories that are attached to all the content that I create, I think that's really cool. So, maybe sometime, 20, 30 years from now, somebody's going to take all this content and go, holy shit, let's make a crazy storyline about all of these car nuts that were traveling all over the world and camping and hanging out and just breaking shit. Maybe that'll happen. I don't know. There's so much content. It's unreal.
Have you found that you've become, so I had this moment where I was starting to do reels, and I was doing project reels. And this was, I think, the 114 Mercedes where I was putting the BMW engine into it. And I was talking about doing drive shafts and making motor mounts and stuff like that. And they were about 60 seconds. They were getting 10 to 15,000 views. And I wasn't super happy with the engagement, right? I just didn't really feel it. And I would kind of, because I didn't get what I thought I deserved out of the content that I was creating, it made me crabby.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
I would come in from the garage and I'd be around. I'd be like kind of like freaking just crabby with my kids or with my wife or whatever. And I remember just being in the shower being like, oh, fuck this. And I'm like shampooing my hair like extra hard, right? And I go, what am I doing? Where am I getting my sense of self-worth from?
Yeah.
I had this realization that I was getting my sense of self-worth from the wrong place.
Yeah, totally.
And I cold turkey, not that I was addicted to creating the content, but overnight decided I'm not making content anymore like this.
Yeah.
I stopped, like flat out stopped. I really enjoy this content that I'm creating with you because it's a really great way to have a conversation. I really get something out of this. The other stuff, I don't know that I was getting anything out of it. And now that I've shifted towards, focusing on Overcrest, and, we just had the Day Pass stuff that came out today, and like the reels that we make for Overcrest, I really do enjoy that because I'm creating that for other people, which is something that I really enjoy. Did you find that when you kind of like pulled back from creating all this content of yourself and for yourself, how did it change your morale? Did it change your morale? And did it help you, or how do you feel about it?
Looking for the best app for navigating your next adventure? Look no further than onX Off-Road. With over 75,000 miles of trails and comprehensive offline maps, you can explore without worrying about cell service. The app features trail ratings, detailed information, and a Discover tool to help you find trails near you. onX Off-Road also includes public and private land boundaries, so you always know where you can legally off-road and camp. Plan trips with ease using the Route Builder and share your adventures with friends. With features like route tracking, waypoint marking, and real-time updates, you're equipped for any challenge. Start your next adventure with confidence and try Onyx Off-Road free for 7 days. Download today and start exploring.
I guess.
Yeah, that's an interesting situation, and Sarah and I were talking about that like just the past couple of days, because we've kind of decided to ramp it up again. We've decided to start making content and like a different perspective, and more of a perspective of back to like what we do, like what I do on a daily life, what she does throughout the daily life, and kind of how we have gotten to the place that we're at, and in incorporating people into that, because I got tired of making content that I felt like people would want to see. And I felt like, and I still feel this way, that when you're doing it that way, you're not actually creating authentic content.
Yep.
You're saying, and this is the problem with like the algorithms and the things like that is, they feed off of one particular thing. And you and I have had these conversations privately, but a lot of the times it's the same thing over and over and over again. It's
a
like
feedback loop. Yep.
Yeah,
it's really hard for anything new and
yeah,
fresh to cut in.
yeah. And if it is, it's got to be something crazy, edgy, or
It's
controversial,
outrageous, yeah.
or whatever. And that's really unfortunate. And so I'm banking on the fact that we can go out and create real world content that kind of shares our life, the lifestyle that we live, and hopefully that's kind of the things that people, they might have some goals and dreams of it as well. And that's what people are inspired by, and that's what they keep coming back for. I think that, to me, is the way I'm going to get past this kind of just dead zone of I'm not interested in making content anymore.
It gets really disenfranchising to see like there's this one guy who like just destroys cars. You've seen it.
Oh yeah,
it's the guy. He's got a 996 and he just cuts the seats up, drops shit on it, hits it with a hammer. And the comment, everyone, I went back and I looked. He's done it a bunch of times. And every comment is just people that are just enraged.
Yeah.
And I'll do something where it's like, hey, this is a beautiful thing. This is like a special moment. This is inspiring. And it would get like 10 or 20,000 views, which is technically a lot.
Yeah.
If you were like, imagine 20,000 people in a stadium looking at you while you do something.
It's totally crazy. Like we're so delusional with like the reach that content has. It's funny that you say that, because there's a guy that I just started following. He just bought his first Porsche, and he makes beautiful content. I had no idea, I didn't know anything about him before. He's got very, like, I don't know, 4,000 or 5,000 followers. And he posted something in one of his stories the other day, and then he posted like the analytics of it, like his like insights of this post, and it was like, 3,000 likes, 5,000, whatever views, or 10,000 views, so many shares, and he was mega stoked on that. And I'm like, that's awesome. Like, that's cool. Like, I'm glad you're excited about that, because if I post something and a story doesn't get 17,000 views, I'm like, what did I do wrong? Like, this is, instead of having like, holy cow, like 17,000 people just saw this. This is a pretty incredible thing. Like, I'm excited. So kind of in this idea of things, I'm working on a project with a tire company, actually, for something that you guys might end up being a little bit part of. You don't even know this yet, Chris. And we're doing everything analog. So we're doing everything analog. Everything's gonna be on film. And it's a pretty cool little project. And I'm excited about it because, shooting on film, you don't really get to get a second take.
And
right?
It really slows you down too.
Oh yeah.
It really
Like,
slows down the process.
It's this thing, and it was funny. I don't know why it happened, but I still do it actually. But when I do these production trips for brands, in particular Porsche, when I can bring a production crew with me, I like to give everybody disposable film cameras. And for probably the past 3 years, I've been just collecting disposable film cameras from all of these trips that everybody has taken. And some of these guys are like, did you get that developed yet? Did you get that? I'm not, no, yeah. Like, I think it's going to happen here in the next couple months, but I'm really excited for that, because those are actually the memories that I'll probably like recognize more than anything else that we've done. Like, that's exciting to me.
Finding an old photo that I remember, going back through my stuff at my grandpa's house and pulling out a picture and being like, holy shit, you know, and it's just this, it's the one moment, it's just the one frame, it's the one moment, it's where the light hit the film, chemically altered the thing. I don't know, it's like a super stupid romantic, like this is a literal chemical reaction to this moment right here.
Yeah.
Not converted into something
So
else.
that's probably what's inspiring me more than anything right now. And there's some great content creators out there that are just shooting on film now, especially in the car world, and that's
Yeah.
really really fun. Um,
And
yeah.
you're building a car too, yeah?
Yeah. I feel like I'm always
Jeez.
building a car, but
Well,
definitely
like,
building. I'm building one that's kind of special. Yeah.
what's up? What's going on? Tell me about this car.
So it's a Safari 996. So it's a lifted 996. It's meant to like drive off road.
Is it something that people are going to be able to buy? Is like,
Yeah.
what's
Okay. So we'll get into this a little bit more. I'm going to just tell the story, I guess. So in
yeah.
2001, again, big Porsche guy. Yeah. 2001. I was a little bit inspired by an article in the April, May issue of Christophorus magazine. And it was Porsche Australia decided to drive a brand new 996 turbo from one end of Australia to the other. And this was kind of in the build up to the launch of the Cayenne.
I'm told by
And
my wife, who's listening to this right now, that I'm not allowed to do that trip.
oh, well,
She
Christopher.
says you're not allowed to drive from across Australia. She just assumes I'm going to get murdered or be dead. So,
I mean, it's just bugs. You just the animals. It's not the people. It's the animals that'll get you. So that article completely inspired me. Like it locked into my memory like nothing else. And they had basically done a 4-inch lift on just a stock 996 turbo. And they did it all in house. So it was done by Porsche Australia. And I'm like, I'm going to build a lifted 996 someday. And 2 years ago, I basically like started this process like in my mind quite a while ago. But 2 years ago, actually 3 years ago now, I found a car. It was a bring a trailer car, total shitbox. And I'm like, this is the perfect candidate to build a car that I'm going to thrash on forest roads and off road, all the things that we were doing on Overcrest, but I could actually do it at high speed.
yeah.
And then Porsche called me and asked me to do a film about their 75th anniversary of the brand in Zuffenhausen. So flew me and a few of the guys out, made a short film. And at one of the dinners that I was at, kind of a little social thing one night, I was standing at a table all by myself because everybody around me is speaking a language that I don't understand. And I'm just munching on some sausages and some cheese and some, all this kind of stuff. And this woman comes up and she said, "Hey, do you mind if I, share this table with you?" And I'm like, "Sure, it's fine." And she's got an Australian accent. And I'm a talker. So she's like, I find out how she is, and turns out she works for Porsche Australia. And I'm like, "Hey, listen, you guys did a trip like 20 years ago, and it completely changed the direction of my life, and it's inspired me to build a Safari 996. Like, I want to build an off-road car." And she's like, "Oh, I know that story." She goes, "In fact, one of the guys, one of the engineers, still works for us. He's still in one of the." And I'm like, "You're kidding me." And I go, "Is there any way I could talk to him?" She's like, "Yeah. I'll give me your email. I'll have him email you." So I started this conversation with this dude, and he shares all the specs of everything that they did to this 911, these 911s. And now I
You're
have,
like,
oh yeah. Oh yeah. I'm like,
writing
tell me
everything
more.
down.
Tell me more. Like, and what, what's the spacing and what's the suspension geometry like? And like, how's, because, Porsche doesn't do things like, oh, we're just going to throw some spacers on there and just call it good.
No.
Like, they were meticulous about how it was done, even the Aussies. So,
Even the Aussies.
yeah.
We have
I mean,
a lot of listeners, man. You gotta be
yeah.
careful.
Well, like a bunch of old criminals and things like that. They do things a little crazy. So I get all this stuff and I've sourced the car, and now it was a matter of like trying to figure out how I can build all of these parts to start actually making the car, because I wanted to build it just like Porsche would have built it. So it's OEM plus. And I reached out to Mike at Eurowise, and I said, because I know he'd done some stuff with a friend of mine, Nick Hanlon. He's got 944 Rally. This guy who's got that crazy 944 Rally car.
Yep.
And he'd done some stuff with Nick. So like, Mike's probably my best option. And Mike's like, yeah, we can totally do that. Like, no problem. So Mike builds essentially a spacer kit for the 996, 997s. So you can lift these cars up to OEM Porsche spec. Super cool. Well, I wanted to take it up to another notch a little bit more. And because I have now been able to like work with all of some of these German brands and bigger just automotive brands, I started reaching out to a few other people. And one of those people being Matt Crook. And I said, hey, Matt, I'm looking to build like a coilover suspension for this car so I can raise it and lower it, and drive it off-road and do this kind of stuff. Any suggestions? And of course, he says KW. And over the next like 3 or 4 months of emailing back and forth, I finally get an opportunity to talk with the guys in Germany at KW. And they invited me to come out. And so I flew out to Stuttgart and then drove up to Fichtenberg, where KW is located. And they had a 996 there. And they were working on the suspension for it already.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh my God, it's real. Like, this is actually happening. And it was a 996 C4S. It was everything. And they'd already started developing the coilover suspension for these safari cars for me. And we kind of started honing it down a little bit more.
Let me be clear. There's nothing right now really like that.
Nothing.
Zero.
I mean, there are, but there's one out of South Africa. Guys making absolutely incredible stuff, but it's heavily modified, and it's not OEM plus. It's basically a completely aftermarket kit,
Gotcha.
full of car, and it's amazing. I was down in Cape Town into last year and got to see those cars in person and things like that. And so that fast forward a little bit, KW bought Reiger suspension, and Reiger suspension is like the suspension partner for WRC. Like, they build the best rally suspensions on the planet. And we got to tie them into the process. So it's like KW suspension with a whole bunch of Reiger tuning and technology added into it. And the best part about it is we've been like busting our tail to make it affordable to the 996 owner, because this is a thing, right? People who buy 996s usually aren't like the wealthy Porsche owners.
Yeah,
they're the guys that are like
entry level into the water.
They're trying to get into, they're just trying to get into the Porsche, the 911 world.
Yeah.
But I wanted to make sure that whatever we were offering was something that they could afford, but also had the quality that I would expect out of a car that I'm going to go like thrash on.
What is the generational evolution of suspension with these cars when you look at 996 to 997? Is it even close, or does Porsche move so fast that this stuff doesn't
no,
even
they don't move fast at all. They move incrementally slow. It's like evolution.
Okay.
And I think Porsche would admit to that. Like, they move incrementally slow, but the technology and the development that they're putting into it is really second to none. Like, it's so refined. It's precision. But the suspension going from 996 to 997 was a pretty big change. The shocks, struts, that was a huge change for them. They launched PASM, the Porsche Active Stability Management System, with the 997.
So this stuff doesn't carry over. You're not. No.
Not really. It fortunately it won't take much to make some adjustments to put them on the 997s. So I would imagine that's coming here pretty soon too. I won't say that out loud. So yeah, that's how that developed. And we ended up putting 4 kits together, 4 different styles, and testing them on all different surfaces, and finally settled on one. And hopefully, probably by the end of this week, we're going to have a tentative launch date. So good timing.
Yeah, absolutely. That'll be cool. That'll well, this episode comes out on Thursday, so
cool.
That'll tie in well. Yeah. Dude, congratulations.
Thank you.
That's awesome. Who doesn't want to like collaborate with someone like KW to make suspension for a car?
Well, and it's crazier than that, man, because it's like KW for the suspension, and then, back to Matt Crook again. Like, I really have to give so much shout out to Nick Hanlon, because he helped me do this. I wanted a rally style wheel, but I wanted to like have Porsche history to it.
Yeah.
So we developed essentially like a 996 turbo twist rally spec wheel
Yeah.
and developed that. I worked with EF wheels on that. Those are live and ready to go. You can purchase those through EF wheels through our website. So we got those going on. They're lighter, they're stronger. Um, you can fit them over the big brake kits of the turbos and the 4S cars, and of course the small cars. So that's a really cool thing. Been working with Eurowise on full undercarriage protection, so all the skid plates, rocker guards, rear. Working with an exhaust company on a custom exhaust that's going to be, I'm not going to give it away yet because we're not that far, but it's going to be pretty rad.
So where are you going to take when this car is done?
Yeah.
Done, and you've done all the things. Where do you want to go? What are you going to go to?
Nokian Tires has officially launched their newest tire, and it's one we're especially excited about as it's tailor-made for the type of driving we like to do here at Overcrest. It's called the Surpass ASO1, and what sets it apart is it's a high-performance all-season tire. It's made specifically for drivers who want the most out of their cars without sacrificing capability when the roads get slick. You know, we have known all too well how unpredictable roads can be, whether you're out on one of our rallies or one of your own adventures, or maybe just running to the grocery store. And let's face it, a car can only perform as well as the tires it's on. That's why the new Surpass ASO1 is so great. It offers the grip of a dedicated high-performance tire, but won't leave you stranded if the road or weather gets rough. Not only does it come with a 55,000-mile warranty, it also offers Nokian's pothole protection. If you happen to get damage from your tire beyond repair, Nokian will replace it for free. What really sets this tire apart, however, is its amazing performance. Check it out at nokiantires.com/surpass.
Are you going to do
So that I hope that it is on the like bucket list for that car. But I think what will probably happen.
I'm going to Australia.
Yeah. That's definitely high on the bucket list. But I think what will happen is we'll probably roll it out at an event, hopefully in Utah this year. And then it will follow.
Safari party?
Yeah, Safari Party.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
So hopefully we'll have the first round of the car like near completed there, and then
when is Safari Party this?
Safari Party Utah is September 26th, 27th, or sorry, 27, 28, 29.
Where can people, if they want to know more about that?
Yeah, so they can go to safaripartyrally.com. All the applications are closed for this year. Like we close within like 30, like we leave them open for like 30 days. And then we close it out just because we get so you understand this, Chris, like running Overcrest Rally, like it's so many people. So hundreds and hundreds of applications, and we whittle it down to 40 cars for Utah and about 25 to 30 for Oregon. Oregon is coming up in June, and then Utah will be in September. But
well, that's awesome. It seems like a fun event from what I can tell. And I look forward to seeing the car that you're
yeah, and then hopefully after that, it'll end up on Overcrest. And then right after that, it would end up at SEMA. And then the plan is to throw it on a boat and send it to Europe and do a drive from Ivalo to Spain. So Finland to Spain. Yeah.
Well, dude, inspiring journey as always. I'm looking forward to where you're going. I don't know. I like seeing where people that are following their passion go because it's inspiring for all of us, and we can all take a piece out of it and keep it for ourselves and put it in our back pocket.
I appreciate that greatly, and I think that it's just anybody should go out and like run down that dream, man. Just chase it down, like make the sacrifices that you have to, and just chase something because we're here for a very, very short time. And why would you waste that? Like, why would you waste that doing things you don't want to do?
It's hard because I think some people look at it and go, "Oh, well, easy for who and so to say," but everybody. It's because of this, and I used to take flack from this on the podcast because I would be like, "Dude, just come on the rally, go for a drive to this," and people would be like, "I fucking can't."
Yeah,
I fucking can't. I'm like, do something small, start small. You don't have to. People try to aim for this. They see this dream of where they see themselves in the ideal version of themselves, right?
Yeah.
Which is unfair to yourself because you always will raise the bar for yourself. Always. Wherever you are, and then you'll get to the spot and then you raise the bar for yourself again once you've gotten there. Because if you don't, you get bored and you get sad and depressed and all these other things. You have to continue to evolve, your dreams. But people aim so far down the path
Yeah.
that they can't even take the first step. So when we talk about like, hey, follow your passion, do your dream, do stuff like this, you don't have to like knock the home run out of the park right away, right?
No.
You don't have to like go drive across Australia, go find a gravel road in your neighborhood and go rip
Totally.
around, just like in your Ford Ranger, whatever. Like, who gives a shit? It's you can. I don't want people to think that it's very easy for people to go and pursue dreams of it, because it's very hard, and it demands, if you're going to do it, it demands an extreme amount of sacrifice with both time and psyche. It
Yeah,
takes
of course.
sacrifice to do it. But even if you start little and you aim small, shoot small, whatever, go for that little thing and just,
Of course.
go
I
after
think
it.
from a car standpoint, and I think this is important, and I love what you guys are doing with Overcrest, because you started off with Overcrest Rally, which I'm so grateful that especially the first Utah one, I'm so grateful to be part of that. But what you guys have started to do is you've started to kind of like launch these little like offshoots, and it's like Road to Air Water, which you're doing with the Air Water guys, and then you've got what are we calling it, day pass?
The day pass, yeah.
The day pass. Like, so you talk about little steps, like this kind of being like, I'd love to go on an Overcrest Rally, I'd love to do the big thing, but I just can't. Dude, go do a day pass in Oregon.
That's it,
like
man.
go do, like log into the Road to Air Water, like just jump in, and you're going to meet really amazing people in this kind of stuff. And then those amazing people typically are going to be like your support group, your motivators, like that drive.
They're called enablers.
No.
No.
I mean, the enablers, they're going to be your enablers. And then that's going to help you kind of grow into those things. And especially, like, that's how I view it from the car standpoint. And I think that that's applicable to many, many things. Like, surround yourself with the people that you want to be like.
And that's why we have, hundreds and hundreds of cars apply for Overcrest too. And, we try to keep it diverse. It's, just from the guy in his Miata that just wants to show up to a guy that's got, a keen safari car that cost a ton of money to bring along. There's all these different variations of people, and getting that mixture right can be inspiring and enabling for people that are, coming up and following their dreams, to some people that may be where other people want to be. It's a great
100%. I love that about what you guys are doing. I think it's super special. So,
well, we'll see, dude. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate you
Chris.
hanging out with me today, and I'm sure we'll talk incessantly about secret stuff that's happening this summer. I'll drop that there's secret. If you followed along this long, there is secret stuff happening this summer. I'll say that.
I love it, Chris. Thank you so much. Appreciate you having me.
All right, take care, buddy.
All right, cheers.